Welcome to this Matte Painting for Filmmakers presentation on matte painting workflows. In this presentation, we're going to be discussing different matte painting workflows and why each of these workflows would be used. We will also be discussing how to anticipate these workflows on a production and also how to bid matte painting shots. But before we get into these different workflows, I first want to answer a question that you might have. The question is, why does matte painting have several different workflows when other VFX disciplines have a single workflow or a single workflow with some slight variation? In order to answer this question, I have to explain that matte painting is very shot specific, and the specific needs of a shot will drive what workflow the matte painter will use. So there could be several matte shots within a sequence, and potentially each of those shots could have a different workflow. So matte painting has several different well-established workflows, and these workflows that we're going to be talking about here will be matched up with the needs of the shot. In other words, matte painters have a bunch of tools, and they use the right tools for the right job. And because matte painters are problem solvers, if there is not a workflow for this particular need of a shot, then a matte painter will create a new workflow. New matte painting workflows, processes, and techniques are being developed all the time. Matte painting is so much more than just painting in Photoshop. It's a methodology for problem solving and finishing shots. These workflows are such an integral part of matte painting that you can't really have matte painting without them. And unlike CG's one-size-fits-all approach, matte painting has a lean, custom-fit approach to shots. These workflows allow matte painting to offer great results while being quite economical. If you're looking for more information on what makes matte painting the way it is, I would suggest going over to the Matte Painting for Filmmakers site and watch two videos. The first video is called How Matte Painting Works, and the other video is called Why Matte Painting Works. These videos give you a general overview of matte painting and its qualities. So to kick off our discussion about these different workflows, let's talk about the key that I used to diagram these different workflows. On the top is this rounded box shape. Anything within that box is coming from the show pipeline. In the square is the software that is used to build matte painting assets. And in the round is the matte painting elements. And then in the box with the knocked off edges is what matte painting delivers to another department. This is the Photoshop only matte painting workflow. This is a really basic workflow where the matte painter receives an element or gathers it themselves, be it a plate, a light render, or both, and the matte painter paints on top of that element. The matte painter will then deliver the matte painting to the compositor, typically in layers. A matte painter could also create an element not in context of a shot, like a texture, which would be delivered to the asset pipeline. This workflow is suitable for quick patches, paint over, sky domes, sky replacements, or odd texturing tasks. If you want to pair up this workflow with the appropriate matte painting pipeline, in other words, if a matte painter uses this workflow, how would he or she be connecting into the pipeline? Then please watch the video Matte Painting Pipeline. This Photoshop only workflow would be paired with the pipeline's feeding comp elements and matte painting with texturing. Full environment 3D matte painting workflow in Nuke. This workflow is much more involved, but is actually used most often for matte painting shots. The main tools used here are Maya, Nuke, Photoshop, and maybe Mari if it should call for it. I put Maya in here because that is what's used in most of the large houses, but you can easily put in there other 3D packages such as 3D Studio Max or Softimage. Basically, with this workflow, the matte painting is live in Nuke. That means the projections are set up and will be rendered out of Nuke. This has huge benefits because compositors can have a lot of control or even repurpose the matte painting projections for other shots. Basically, everything that the matte painter has used to create the matte painting, the compositor has access to. Another great thing about Nuke's workflow is the stereo management. The left eye and the right eye renders are only rendered on final output. Let's take a closer look at this diagram. In the square boxes you can see the different software being used: Maya, Photoshop, Nuke, and Mari. At the beginning of the workflow are the things that are coming in from the pipeline, such as a shot camera, scene tracking information, or modeled geo. Both of those will go into Maya, where the matte painter will work on the scene. And from the Maya file, the matte painter will export projection cameras, projection geo, and any rendered passes that can come out of Maya. Maya will then export any render passes to be imported into Photoshop to be painted on top of. And once those are painted, they are exported from Photoshop into Nuke as projection images. And I've added Mari here on the right hand side as the newest addition to this workflow that matte painters are using more and more. And the way this works is the projection geo can be sent into Mari because of the Nuke Mari bridge. The paint work will be done in Mari, and then Mari will export projection images and any projection cameras. And it will also export, and you can bring into Nuke, any UV textures if you're going to UV texture an object within Nuke. And then of course any Nuke and Nuke Geo and nodes that are created within the Nuke script. And this all can be exported as a Nuke script to be live to give to the compositor, or it can be given as a rendered image sequence. If you want to pair this workflow up with the pipeline in the matte painting pipeline presentation, then this workflow would go with the matte painting using show assets pipeline and also the matte painting parallel workflow pipeline. Nuke and Photoshop workflow. This workflow skips the 3D package and projects projection images onto basic Nuke geometry. This is really good workflow for nodal camera moves, static shots, or matte paintings that are far enough away that the only parallax you see is the movement between larger objects. Sky domes are often just images UV'd to a Nuke sphere. Nuke has the ability to model and deform primitive shapes, but if there's a need for more complex projection geometry, then you'll need to create those in a 3D package. Very simply, you can see the two software packages that are being used, Photoshop and Nuke. And very simply, the shot camera goes into Nuke, and projection cameras are created right in Nuke. Photoshop will export projection images into Nuke, and then within Nuke, Nuke Geo nodes and other nodes are created. This is all exported again as a live Nuke script to the compositor or a 2D image sequence. Full environment 3D matte painting workflow in Maya. There are times when it's not possible to have a projection set up in Nuke. This is because some shots require more projection geometry than Nuke can reasonably handle. For, let's say, a huge city landscape with a lot of heavy geometry, you would need to project and render the matte painting through a 3D application, be it Maya, 3D Studio Max, or Softimage. Larger studios mostly use Maya and render in RenderMan. Some of the benefits to a projection setup in a 3D package would include its robust rendering capability and the potential for all kinds of custom tools that can be made that would make the 3D application even more capable than Nuke as a matte painting projection solution. Also, in a 3D app, you often have the ability to do projection-based modeling, which is a huge plus. Some of the downsides to this workflow would be that some 3D packages have a limited out-of-the-box toolset for matte painting. Also, another downside is that in order to see all of the elements for the matte painting put together for the shot, you need the extra step of rendering it out of a 3D package and then putting it into Nuke to see the final shot. Also, the projection is not live. It's baked in through the 3D projection, so it's just a 2D image sequence. And lastly, all of your render passes coming out of a 3D app have to be rendered in stereo, so there's an extra step there. Again, you can see the software being used, Maya, Photoshop, and Nuke as the final compositor. So you take your shot camera and your scene tracking and model geo, that goes into Maya from the pipeline. And then from Maya, render passes are generated. Those go into Photoshop, are painted on. Then those projection images are sent back into Maya. Maya projects the matte painting onto the 3D geometry, and those renders go into Nuke and are often broken up into several render passes. Then the appropriate Nuke comp nodes are created, and then of course it is sent out as a Nuke script or as an image sequence. And like I said, there are elements of the matte painting that are going to be that you can consider live because there's a bunch of render passes, but it is not, the projection setup is not done in Nuke. It is done in a 3D application. Again, here, if you want to pair this particular workflow up with the pipeline in the matte painting pipeline presentation, then this workflow would go with the matte painting using show assets or matte painting parallel workflow. Full environment 3D matte painting Mari workflow. Here's an example that workflows and processes are being developed all the time by matte painters. I developed this workflow recently while working on The Great Gatsby. In this workflow, the matte painter uses Mari to paint an entire set extension or environment. Then this entire projected or UV textured environment is imported into Nuke. In Nuke, tools are provided by the matte painter to empower compositors to integrate the matte painted environment into multiple shots. These tools could include Nuke light rigs or 3D grading tools. This workflow is great for creating one matte painted environment and then allowing a large team of compositors to integrate that environment into a lot of different shots. Let's quickly walk you through this workflow. Within the square boxes, you can see the software being used, Maya, Mari, and Nuke. And just like with the other workflows, you have the assets coming out of the pipeline going into Maya. And within Maya, the matte painter will model the set extension or environment and then send that to Mari. And within Mari, that can be painted, or projections can be sent into Photoshop and then back into Mari to either be projected into the UV'd object or to be kept as a projection. From Mari, using the Nuke Mari bridge, you can send projection images in cameras. You can also send from Mari projection geo and UV textures if you're going to UV an object within Nuke. And then the tools are built to give the compositors the capability of integrating the matte painting into different shots through the Nuke nodes. And then finally, this is delivered as a Nuke script. You notice in this one that there's not the capability of exporting this as an image sequence, because the whole purpose of this workflow is to give the compositors all the tools they need to integrate the matte painting into the different shots. Alright, so that is 5 different workflows that matte painters often use. What I'd like to do now is answer some common questions that surround matte painting workflows. The first question is, because matte painting is so shot specific and several different workflows are used, how do you bid and plan for matte painting shots? It is true that there's kind of a steep learning curve when it comes to the application of these workflows to specific shots, and unless a VFX supervisor or producer has been a matte painter or has had a lot of experience working with the matte painting methodology, it is not expected that they would know what workflow would be appropriate for every shot. But the solution is easy. Rely on your matte painting lead or matte painting supervisor and involve them in your bidding meetings. From their years of experience, they will be able to make informed decisions about bid times for shots. Remember, matte painting can be a huge cost saver to your studio. It's a good idea to involve them in your planning meetings. I would also add that you should make a flexible place for these workflows within your pipeline so that matte painting does not have to bid extra time for cumbersome workarounds in a pipeline that does not support these workflows. If you have any questions about how to fit matte painting into your pipeline, then please watch the Matte Painting for Filmmakers presentation on matte painting pipelines. With this last question, we're going to wrap up this presentation. Question: to simplify things, can a studio predetermine one specific workflow that a matte painter will use every single time for every shot? No, not really. If a studio wanted to do this, then they would hugely be underutilizing what matte painting can offer. Matte painting is matte painting because of these workflows. Matte painting's goal is to create fantastic imagery in the most economical way. Custom fitting workflows to shots is a means of doing that. Thank you for watching this Matte Painting for Filmmakers presentation on matte painting workflows. If you would like to learn more about the Matte Painting for Filmmakers project or would like to watch more instructional video presentations on matte painting related topics, then please go over to the Matte Painting for Filmmakers website. That is mp4fm.com. And if you have any questions about the content of this presentation, then please email me at garfry@gmail.com.